Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, over here for the Daily Blob, where we look at a gnat speck-sized canary in a coal mine to see what might happen to the United States in the next couple of years with what the administration is doing. So I find this to be interesting. As a fake Jew, I'm not a Jew. My name's Eli. My entire family's from the Midwest. Before they were from the Midwest, they were from like Scotland and England and Germany and the whole nine yards. When my father named me Eli, I don't think he had ever met a Jewish person in his life. And he was like 29 at the time, for Christ's sakes. I'm not Jewish. But anyways, I've been finding this whole, idiocy going on with Israel interesting, basically as the world's opinion basically shifts on Israel. Not that long ago, to say anything bad against Israel, and you were going to be labeled an anti-Semite and a Nazi and all of those kinds of things. And what we're starting to see is basically the world's opinion is changing on Israel, and it'll be curious to see how that works out at the end of the day. As I've talked about before with Israel, right? The absolute abject arrogance of that country, the belief that they can get through anything. What happens when the rest of the world stops caring about them? As I've talked about before, I don't want another dime going to Israel. I'm not saying we should repossess our F-35s, load them up with bombs, and then bomb the crap out of Israel. I'm just saying we should take our F-35s back. We should take our F-35s back. We should stop sending dumb munitions over there. We should stop, sending our warplanes to kill the people that Netanyahu wants us to kill and the whole nine yards. Netanyahu has stated in the past that if they have to fight with their teeth and nails, by golly, they will. And as I say, deal accepted. Deal accepted. Shake that hand. Grab your weapons, move the hell out. But anyways, right? Israel right now, is starving the hell out of the Gazans. You got the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Malnutrition is now rife in the area. Literally they're trying to starve out the population, but they also don't allow the population to leave. To realize how evil Israel really is with all of this, the Gazans can't even be refugees. Think about how screwed up you have to be, right? You hear about the refugee crisis all around the world, Syrians or Venezuelans or whoever else, right? And they have, their conditions are so bad, they have to take incredibly risky journeys to try to get to countries that might not even want them when they get there. And think about how bad, just how horrible that must be for those refugees. And then now imagine the Palestinians, where they don't even have the freedom to be refugees. They literally cannot escape the bombings and the starvation and everything else that the Israelis are setting up. They are literally boxed in. They can't go to the north. They can't go to the can't go to the west. The water, they're not allowed into their own waters, and Egypt doesn't want any part of this. So basically, they are boxed into this area so that the Israelis can slaughter them. Which, that's how we go. So I've been talking about this. I've been talking about how even the we've had two Israeli human rights organizations come out. I do believe it was yesterday. They literally stated their own government is implementing a genocide against the Palestinians. We've had the ICC come out and put a criminal charge against Netanyahu to where my country is now sanctioning the ICC. When the ICC goes after Putin, we're told that proves that Putin is bad. When the ICC goes after Netanyahu, we're told that the ICC is a bunch of shills or whatever else. We've seen 30 countries, and these 30 countries include now China, Ireland, Spain, that are trying to put concrete actions basically against Israel to stop them from the continued ethnic cleansing. We've talked about where Greece, basically the cruise ship, 1,600 Israelis that are really tired. They're exhausted from all their work cleansing a population. They just want to get a little me time and a little vacation. We talked about how Greece, basically they were moved on from an island because of the protesters there. And the curious thing now is that France is going to recognize a Palestinian state. Macron says. So coming from the BBC, many other places. And what we're seeing more and more of is where Israel is losing. Because of Israel's pure, just vile evil, Israel is losing. When you say I'm anti-Semitic, no, come to the United States. I'm more than happy for Jewish people to come to the United States. Hey, you want to set up a new Intel fab, or I guess an NVIDIA fab in Arizona, and staff it with a whole bunch of Jewish people? Cool. Again, I don't have an issue with the fucking Torah. I don't have an issue with gefilte. Don't make me eat a fucking gefilte fish. Look, you fucking make me eat that shit, we're gonna throw down. As long as you don't try to force me to eat gefilte fish, we're fine. We're fine, right? This isn't about religion. Anti-Semitic. You hate those people. No, I hate the abject evil that the country is perpetrating, that they're trying to drag Americans into, right? Think about this for a second. They talk about, is this where World War III will start? Will Israel start World War III so that the United States men and women have to get slaughtered, right? How much blood does Israel, not Jews, does Israel demand from the world for them to do whatever the hell it is that they're going to do? And it's one of the reasons I fucking despise Israel. Not Jewish people. Jewish people, come to the United States. You're smart, you work hard, you got a lot of money. We need more people to pay. Our tax rates are going down to such a degree. We need more people to come to the United States to pay more taxes. More than happy to have you in the United States paying your fair share of taxes. But Israel, ugh. Anyways, and so I think this is kind of curious here because basically there's been this whole thing with the whole two-state solution. You know, Israel has never wanted the two-state solution. Israel believes they own all of it, right? It is their colony. And again, when we talk about colony, oh, you can't call it a colony. Look, people of a certain religious and ethnic traits are allowed to come from anywhere in the world to populate the area. People whose people have lived on the land for generations are kicked off the land and have no right of return. Why is it people that were on the land 20 years ago have no right of return, but people who basically families haven't seen the land, let's just say theoretically, in 1,000 years, they have a right to return? That is called a colony. You are the last Western colony. What has happened to the previous Western colonies? That's simply going to be what's going to happen to you, but whatever. All right, so I think this is curious. France will officially recognize a Palestinian state in September. President Emmanuel Macron has said, which will make it the first G7 nation to do so. In a post on X, Macron said the formal announcement would be made at a session at the UN General Assembly in New York. Quote, the urgent need today is for the war in Gaza to end and for the civilian population to be rescued. Peace is possible. It's the civilian population to be rescued. Peace is possible. We need an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages, and massive humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. Palestinian officials welcome Macron's decision, while Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the move, quote, rewards terror. Yeah. Following Hamas's 7 October 2023 attack in Israel. The U.S. strongly rejects Macron's announcement. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said, calling decision reckless. How dare you pretend that these people are people? All right? The U.S. always comes out on the wrong side of this. I understand the original sin. I understand the original sin of the United States, right? George Washington was a slaveholder. I do think we have to take that into account when we look at history. But I think we can also stop. My question is can we just stop? Can we accept the evil that has previously been done and try to stop doing any more going into the future? Our government says no. In his Thursday post on X, Macron wrote, quote, true to its historic commitment to a just and lasting peace in the Middle East, I have decided that France will recognize the state of Palestine. Quote, we must also guarantee the demilitarization of Hamas and secure and rebuild Gaza. Finally, we must build the state of Palestine, assure its viability, ensure that by accepting its demilitarization and fully recognize Israel, it contributes to the security of all in the Middle East. There is no alternative. I am kind of curious with that, this whole thing of we demand that you accept Israel. We demand that you accept the militarized colony that has been dumped in your land and that has been, terrorizing you for the past God knows how many generations. I wonder how well that's going to work out. I mean, think about this, right? The Israelis are allowed to have nukes. The Israelis are allowed to have nukes. Nobody else is allowed to have nukes, but Israel is allowed to have nukes. So Israel can be militarized to God knows what degree. Everybody else around them needs to be demilitarized. See, the way that you make the Israelis feel safe is if they have all of the weapons and you have none. When they can slaughter you at will, then they're going to feel comfortable about this situation. I do wonder how well that will go at the end of the day. Netanyahu wrote in a post on X, quote, we strongly condemn President Macron's decision to recognize a Palestinian state next to Tel Aviv in the wake of the 7 October massacre. Quote, a Palestinian state in these conditions would be a launch pad to annihilate Israel, not to live in peace beside it. Let's be clear, the Palestinians do not seek a state alongside Israel. They seek a state instead of Israel, Netanyahu added. So basically, there can be no peace, right? Netanyahu wants it to be clear they need to continue slaughtering the Palestinians. Basically, what Netanyahu is stating here is that they see that they can never have peace beside the Palestinians, ergo, they have to cleanse them all. Currently, the state of Palestine is recognized by more than 140 of the 193 states of the states of the United Nations. A few European Union countries, including Spain and Ireland, are among them, but Israel's main supporter, the U.S., and its allies, including the U.K., have not recognized the Palestinian state. In a statement on Thursday, U.K. Prime Minister Starmer said he would hold an emergency call with French and German leaders on Friday to discuss, quote, what we can do urgently to stop the killing. Statehood is, quote, an inalienable right of the Palestinian people, Starmer said, adding that a ceasefire would, quote, put us on a path to the recognition of a Palestinian state and a two-state solution. Starmer's statement came as he faces growing pressure, including from his own MPs, for the UK to follow France's lead. On Friday, a majority of MPs on the Foreign Affairs Committee, which scrutinizes UK foreign policy, called for the immediate recognition of the state of Palestine, adding it should make the move, quote, while there is still a state to recognize. Israel is trying to destroy any possibility of a state, trying to eradicate the people. Ergo, if we're going to try to make a state, probably should do it before everybody gets killed. Quote, an inalienable right should not be made conditional, a committee report said. So I think this is kind of interesting to see, basically, as the world's opinion changes on Israel and changes on the Palestinian plight, and it'll be curious what happens going into the future, right? The ICC wants Netanyahu on war crimes charges, right? Humanitarian organizations, everybody can see the starvation that's going on in Gaza. Even with Israel trying to prevent media from getting into Gaza to actually being able to fully report on the situation, on the abject evil that is occurring there. So it'll be curious to see how this fleshes out at the end of the day. I talked about this before with Intel and NVIDIA, right? Intel and NVIDIA basically being the IBMs of the 2020s, right? Back during the 1930s, the Nazis needed a hell of a lot of tabulation machines to tabulate something, right? Israel in the 2020s needs a hell of a lot of artificial intelligence, right? To be able to track and process something. I'll be curious to see how this actually works out, basically, at the end of the day. And it's curious to see how opinion changes, and how opinion changes even as people are told what they should believe, right? I talked about that before with Greece, right? Greece is bending over backwards to kiss Netanyahu's ass, right? You had protesters. You had actual peaceful protesters protesting an Israeli cruise ship coming into port into one of the islands. The Israelis decided they didn't feel comfortable going to an island where they were being protested, and so they moved on, right? The Greek politician said it was anti-Semitic. It is anti-Semitic to protest a people that are responsible for ethnic cleansing, right? Because he's a pro-Semite, right? Pro-Semitism means the Palestinians have to be starved to death. If you are anti-Semitic, you are anti the Palestinians being starved to death. And so you have the government officials coming out and they feel proud and they feel well paid and well fucking fed. And they're saying this is what the people should believe. And the people are believing what they are believing. And yeah, I don't know. Be curious to see how this fleshes out at the end of the day, and how, what happens with geopolitics. I've talked about this with the Trump administration, where, so there's so many of these countries, right? The Trump administration is now coming out, they're beating up on France. But what does it matter, right? The Trump administration has just pushed through this tariff policy with the EU that's incredibly punitive, right? Towards our allies, he's pushed through this incredibly punitive trade policy. At the exact same time, he's trying to get out of NATO. At the exact same time, he's threatening to slaughter Greenlanders, Europeans, because he thinks that we should own Greenland, right? When you have a country that's pulling out of security pacts, which is trying to punish, countries based off of trade policies, literally threatening to slaughter your people, at what point do you give two shits what their opinion is? Right? So France comes out, UK comes out, the US is like, no, we won't agree with this. At what point does the world stop caring? And what does that do for Israel? Right? Oh, this is anti-Semitic. Oh, Eli, what you have to understand about Israel. What I have to understand is you're a gnat shit-sized country that the world is about to turn their backs on because they find you fucking disgusting. It makes most people nauseous what's going on right now. And the thought that my tax money, right, in April, when I have to send off a big-ass check to the government to pay for the dumb munitions that you're using to slaughter a people, right, gets folks a wee bit frustrated. So anyways, there you go. There's some thoughts. France is going to recognize the Palestinian state. The UK may be recognizing the Palestinian state. The United States is screaming in the background, screaming as more and more countries shut their windows and don't give a shit anymore. Anyways, what do you think about this? Give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down. Say how amazing these videos are or how horrible they are. That's okay too. In the modern world of YouTube, all that matters is that interaction. And with that, see y'all later.